In AV4-3, you'll be able to calculate the volume of a cone. Go ahead and pause this video and open up the visual proof that I've posted in Schoology. It gives you a visual of how this formula works. In that proof, in that visual, it showed you that you could fill up a cylinder with 3 equal cones using the same height, using the same radius. So what that shows us is that the volume of a cone equals 1/3 the volume of a cylinder using the same radius, the same height. Let's recall that volume of a cylinder is the area of the base times the height, and this is pi r squared times the height. So for our cone, we have 1/3 pi r squared, which is our base, times the height of the cone. The area of the base, remember, is a circle. So in this case, we have that volume equals 1/3 the area of the base times the height. More specifically, 1/3 pi r squared times the height. Find the volume of the cone. As a reminder, we can use this formula, volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times the height, for oblique cones and right cones. We just have to make sure with the height that the height is always perpendicular to the base. So as I look at my cone, I'm given the radius of 3, and I see that the height is 10 because 10 is perpendicular to the base. So we have 1/3 pi, my radius is 3, so 3 squared, times my height of 10. I'm going to go ahead and do some multiplying and simplifying. So I have 1/3 times 9 times 10 times pi, which gives me 90 over 3 pi, or more specifically 30 pi. Just like before, we're not touching our pi key on the calculator. We're not typing in 3.14. We're leaving our answer in terms of pi. In this example, it says to find the height of the cone. They're giving us the radius and the volume. We're still going to use our formula, volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times the height, because we're working with a cone. And we're going to substitute what we know. So we know our volume is 24 pi. I have 1/3 pi times my radius of 2 squared times my height. We're solving for that height, so we need to do a little simplifying. 2 squared is 4. So 1/3 times 4 times pi times my height is going to give us that 24 pi. I can leave it as 4 pi over 3 times my height equals 24 pi. Now I need to get h all by itself, so I'm going to consider dividing by 4 pi over 3. Remember, dividing by a fraction is really the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, because what happens if we multiply by the reciprocal on both sides, you can see that it clears our fraction on this side. The 3's cancel, the 4 pi's cancel. So then I can go ahead, come over to the other side and do a little simplifying as well. 24 and 4 can be divided by 4, so 24 divided by 4 is 6, 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now I have it a little bit easier. 6 times 3 is 18, and I can also see that these pi's reduce, so I'm left with 18 equals my height. For example number 3, it says find the volume of the cylinder with the cone removed. There are 2 ways to solve this one. The first way is you could use the volume of the cylinder, and you could find the volume of the cone, and then you could subtract them. So you'd use pi r squared h minus 1/3 pi r squared h, and you would do all the math and you'd simplify down here to get your final answer. This will absolutely work. But we can also try to generate a formula that allows us to only substitute the numbers in once. So if I look and I bring this formula over here, pi pi r squared h minus 1/3 pi r squared h. So if we look at this, we could kind of say pi r squared h looks exactly like pi squared r h. Let's just call that x. Let's use that, think of it as a variable, which would mean we'd have 1x minus 1/3 x, which is the same thing as 2/3 x. So that x in this case is really pi r squared h. So while yes, we could find the volume of the cylinder, the whole thing, and then find the volume of the cone and take that volume of the cone away, we could also consider that we're really just keeping 2/3 of the cylinder. So we're going to do 2/3 pi r squared times h. 2/3 pi, my radius is 10, my height is 15. I'm going to do a little multiplying and simplifying. 2/3 pi times 100 times 15. Oops, I should have written 100. Okay, now I can do a little bit of simplifying. 100 over 1, 15 over 1, 15 and 3. I can simplify dividing by 3. And now I can multiply. 2 times 100 times 5 is 1,000 pi. And we could have found the volume of the cylinder and taken away the volume of the cone and gotten the same answer. So I'm going to show you here. Pi, radius is 10 squared times 15, which is our height, minus 1/3 pi. My radius is 10 again, so 10 squared times the height of 15. 10 squared is 100, so 100 times 15 pi minus 1/3. 10 squared is 100 times 15 times pi. 100 times 15 is 1,500 pi minus, I'm going to do a little simplifying over here. 100 over 1, 15 over 1. 15 and 3, I can simplify by dividing by 3. Now I have 1 times 5, which is 500 pi. 1,500 minus 500 is 1,000 pi. And notice, either way, we get the same answer.